Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the program Our Environment. The program covers issues related to various plants and animals of our various ecosystems of the world. It also touches issues affecting our local gene banks and the gene banks of the world, hence biodiversity as a whole. In today's program, we shall be treating conservation agriculture. I am Arrey Ivo, and behind the dashboard is Puga Rogers. Conservation agriculture involves the use of soil management practices such as no tillage, direct sowing, reduced tillage, minimum tillage, non-incorporation of soil residues, and the establishment of cover crops. Agriculture constitutes the backbone of the Cameroonian economy and offers self-employment to many. More than 70% of our rural community is involved in agriculture, while in cities, urban agriculture is fast gaining grounds. Agriculture has evolved a lot from when early man practiced gathering to the present day mechanized agriculture. The most recent and developed aspect of agriculture has been in the field of conservation agriculture. Conservation agriculture started around 1970 by farmers in the American continent. Soil tillage over the years had led to extensive erosion, decline in yields, and increased cost of production. Accumulated experience has been documented on the potential of conservation agriculture to mitigate these negative effects of agriculture. Conservation agriculture is now spreading worldwide with over 14 million hectares of land under the system in Brazil alone. Various regional and international forums have been used to disseminate information about this innovative method of farming, the most recent of which has been the Second World Congress that was held in Brazil in 2003. In most farming systems, soil tillage is considered as a prerequisite to crop planting. Soil inversion using various types of hoes is considered normal farming practice. This way of farming is referred to as conventional tillage or farming. The negative effects of soil tillage on farm productivity are widespread and include the following. To begin with, there is the possibility of the exposure of tilled soil, and when there is the exposure of tilled soil, there is the possibility of less infiltration and more runoff will lead to a situation of erosion. When the soil is eroded, it leads to a situation of soil degradation, and soil degradation might lead to a situation of lower productivity, which reduces variety and the actual food consumption of our people. A reduction in productivity might also be followed with a reduction and a lowering of the biomass production, and this might even lead to a situation in which the capacity to trap carbon dioxide is also reduced because of reduction in plant life. A reduction in production will also lead to a lowering of the profits of farmers, and as such there will be less rural income, and as such there will also be poverty and rural exodus, which leads to the increase in shanty towns and social conflicts in situations like banditism, rape and otherwise. Another setback for soil tillage is the situation where it will lead to a lack of soil cover. Lack of soil cover occurs because of tillage. High soil temperatures sometimes might also affect the soil, especially temperatures of about 50 degrees centigrade, and this will in turn lower soil moisture and lead to a situation of droughts, and droughts will definitely lead to a situation of famine in such localities. When soils have low moisture, there is also less biological activity and a reduction in soil organic matter, and there is also the possibility of the lowering of the nutrient availability of the soil. And if the soil is degraded, it will need more lime and fertilizers, and this shall definitely increase the inputs of the farmer and affect his well-being, especially in rural areas. Overall, conventional agriculture is unsustainable ecologically, economically, and socially. The recognition of these negative consequences have led to the development of alternative farming practices, notably organic agriculture, which is without the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Techniques such as mulching and composting are used to provide natural inputs. It emphasizes local farming knowledge and techniques adjusted to different local conditions. There is also permaculture, often seen as a development of the organic. It is basically an abbreviation of permanent agriculture. Permaculture farmers do not generally use inputs, even organic, from outside their farms. Some actions are linked not only to the local microclimates, but also to lunar cycles and astrology, sometimes known as cosmovision. There is also agroecology, the science of sustainable agriculture. It incorporates contemporary scientific understanding of biological principles and resources in the farming system. Then of course we have conservation agriculture, which emphasizes the use of soil management practices such as direct sowing, no tillage, reduced tillage, minimum tillage, non-incorporation of crop residues, and the establishment of cover crops. The most promising of these alternative farming practices is no-till system, referred to as conservation agriculture. It refers to a range of soil management practices that minimize effects on composition, structure, and natural biodiversity, and reduce erosion and degradation. What therefore is the goal of conservation agriculture? The goal of conservation agriculture is to maintain and improve crop yields and resilience against drought and other hazards, while at the same time protecting and stimulating the biological functioning of the soil. Conservation agriculture covers four broad soil and crop management principles, namely minimal soil disturbance, restricted to planting, drilling, that is, no plowing, hoeing, or other forms of soil cultivation. There is also permanent vegetative soil cover, crop cover, and wheat residues are maintained on the surface and none are burned. The soil cover inhibits the germination of many wheat seeds, minimizing wheat competition with the crop. Conservation agriculture employs the use of effective but short-lived herbicide to kill weeds, leaving a mulch on the top of the soil into which the crops can be planted. The continuous use of cropland is allowed. Conservation agriculture also involves direct sowing. Special equipment inserts seeds and fertilizer through, across, and below residues. Lime and non-nitrogen fertilizer mostly is applied on the surface. And there is also the issue of sound crop rotation, combining different plant families, for instance cereals and legumes, generating adequate biomass, and continuously using cropland. It involves planning crop sequences over several seasons to minimize the buildup of pests or diseases and to optimize plant nutrient use by synergy between different crop types and by alternating shallow rooting crops with deep rooting ones. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in onto the program Our Environment. It covers issues related to the various plants and animals that constitute our immediate gene banks and the gene banks of the world. And today we have been focusing on conservation agriculture, and we've been looking on the difficulties that other farmers that have a different option to conservation agriculture have been facing. In the next program, we shall be treating the advantages of conservation agriculture. And in today's program, we actually told you that conservation agriculture involves the use of soil management practices such as no tillage, direct sowing, reduced tillage, minimum tillage, non-incorporation of soil residues, and the establishment of cover crops. Thank you very much for tuning in onto this program. I am Arrey Ivo, and behind the dashboard has been Puga Rogers. Stay tuned to other programs over the Eden Radio. Bye-bye.